Hello, welcome to the Flower Species channel. My name is Maria. I wanted to make a video today about memory and trauma. And I will probably try to upload this video also on the Mom series, The Misunderstanding of Multiplicity, where I talk about misunderstanding of many labels, applying meaning to things that may not be there, and how the media very often plays a large role in the way we perceive our own labels that have been given to us, or how diagnoses and labels, how we've come to those disorders and challenges and limitations in our life, and what we do with it then, because it has been shown on media one way only. And I'm not just talking about big film, small film. I'm talking about books, I'm talking about talk shows, I'm talking about when reputable news people report what a condition is. It could be anything from bipolar to multiple personality, dissociative identity disorder, to post-traumatic stress, to borderline, to the way people understand obesity, homelessness, anorexia, eating disorders in general, how people think a cancer patient should look, how people think a handicapped person should act, autism, a challenged, gifted, Rain Man. I've talked about all this on the Mom series since 2007, so I won't get into too much. What I really want to discuss is using a personal example of memory, of what we can do when we go through a traumatic memory. Trying to remember something that is traumatic. And I want to tie that in specifically to Judge Kavanaugh and Dr. Christine Ford, and talk about how memory can get murky, and how sometimes we can replace the details and the date with a completely other event, and not be able to remember ever the date. And I wanted to make videos about this on the Mom series forever, and forgot. So now I'm just going to make it here and then upload it to Facebook. And so as the story goes, that we know per the media, which is filtered through the mass media, and we don't know what we're seeing, whatever. We don't know. Okay, but what we know is that Dr. Christine Ford wrote a letter to Senator Feinstein and way back in July, and proceeded to explain that she wanted to stay anonymous, but that she didn't say, I don't want Judge Kavanaugh to be a judge or Supreme Court. She just said, this is what happened. And very clearly, there were 2 other people in the room other than her. There were 4 people in the house. I think she said 4 people. You can go read the letter on the Examiner. It's out there. Just go look at her letter. And the redacted version, now that, it's all out there to read. I'll link to it. Okay, so we've heard KellyanneConway say, well, this woman doesn't remember getting to the party or coming home from the party. This woman doesn't remember anything else about the day. This woman doesn't even remember the date precisely of the day. This woman doesn't remember all these details, but she does remember that she was attacked and assaulted, right? How can this be? Now we have President Trump saying, well, you know what? If this really happened and I don't buy it, her loving parents would have called. No, they wouldn't have. No, they wouldn't have. They probably would have interrogated the jiggers out of her, which she still wouldn't have known what she needed to know. And only made her more confused and more angry, and they would have realized, if we want our daughter to feel safe with our love and trust, we're going to shut up and just support her in this and that. Okay, she did that. Maybe whatever happened. Maybe we don't believe it. Maybe she doesn't have enough information, but we're going to side on believing our daughter, because that's what good parents do. They don't pick up the phone and call the police right away. The parent looks and says, you know what? I don't think you can prove this. You might not have enough information to press charges. And KellyanneConway, you know this. You're a lawyer. maybe Donald Trump doesn't know this, but come on. How can you say in one breath? So I guess I'm going to say, KellyanneConway, listen, please. You spend so much time defending the president. You're not hearing what people are saying. You're not. You're so caught up in what's my next answer going to be to defend the president, to defend what he did. You're talking out of two sides of your mouth. You're saying this woman should be heard and she should be respected in one breath. And we are definitely going to we're going to listen to her, we're going to be respected, and there's going to be no, okay. And in the next breath you're saying, and yet she can't remember that day. She doesn't know that day. She's got it all, I don't know, nothing else that happened, but she remembers that. That's why it's a trauma. That's what happens in traumas. Now, then we can look at Judge Kavanaugh. Judge Kavanaugh has no memory of that day. None. Zip. Can't recall. Why wouldn't he be able to recall? Why wouldn't he be able to recall, right? So you got two sides. You got Kellyanne saying, well, he doesn't recall ever being there. He doesn't, blah, 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 blah. He has no memory. I got no reason to not believe him. Okay. You know what? You're telling two truths. She has no memory. He has no memory. This is what happens in traumas. The person that offends their own soul and goes against their own moral fiber and everything their parents have taught them and does wrong when they know what's right and they know they did wrong, they shock themselves. Not every person that goes and assaults, hits, harms, attacks, rapes, molests a person really meant to do that. In fact, a lot of times they didn't plan at all. There was no motive to do that. Everything just got out of hand. And where there's alcohol involved, that's a mind-altering drug. People black out from alcohol. They were inebriated. And it wasn't unusual for them to have basement parties. What I want to say about memory, and I want to include one of my personal experiences, is when you do something so horrible to another human being that you cannot stomach it, you can't even, it's on a back burner. And we do this all day. We do things we don't want to admit to. We're like total denial. I have no recall. It's really on a back burner. Some trigger happens during the day, something that reminds us, an aroma, a music, a smell, something that's said, something starts to bring it to the front burner. If you think of these two eyes as two burners on a stove, okay, and your ears as the back burners on a stove, you have 4 burners. Think of a stove with 4 burners. You've got a pot of water boiling, and maybe you have it on the left front burner, and that left front burner runs really hot, and it's that, maybe it's electric, and it's maybe a burner that runs a little extra hot, and every time you put something on it, even on simmer, it's boiling over, okay? Or you have it on that one big gas burner that the flame is always a little higher, so you rotate it around, and something happens, and it comes to the front burner. It starts boiling over, and you start remembering. And you start reacting to, what am I remembering? No, wait, let me, You put the lid on it, and you put it to the back burner, where you keep it on simmer until something happens, and it goes all the way around again. It gets to that hot burner, it starts boiling over. Okay. This is what people with post-traumatic stress do. This is what people that have had a memory, a trauma in their life do all the time. They rotate that burner, they bring it to the front. They don't want it to boil over and burn them and make a mess and make their life all messy. So they keep putting it on the back burner. Hopefully when they get to therapy, their therapist's job will be to help them bring it to the front burner and kind of babysit it a little bit and so it doesn't boil over. Or if it boils over a little bit, clean up the mess. Deal with the mess. Take care of that burn wound. Clean it all up, and it's all okay. they kind of help you. Okay, I know you don't want to look at it. It's back here. We're going to bring it up here. We're going to, in a safe way, look at it. I'm not going to let it boil over. Maybe it'll boil over a little bit. It might hurt a little bit. You might start crying. You might start, your emotions might feel like a mess. You might want to scream and yell. You might feel like you want to puke. Whatever. It's going to come to the front. But I'm not going to let it hurt you. We're going to control it. We're going to put it back here when we need to. This is what therapists do every day in therapy. Talk about that memory. Right to front. How can Judge Kavanaugh not remember? Because a lot of times perpetrators that don't plan to rape somebody or hurt somebody, they're traumatized too. Talk to anybody that has run into somebody in a car accident. They really don't remember. They kind of put it someplace, but otherwise they wouldn't be able to function all day. So the person that does the deed can have just as much memory loss. It could be forever lost until they bring it to the front and start looking at it, as the person it happens to. Okay, now I'm going to tell you a situation in my own life. My cousin was married in September 1992. And this is how tricky memory is. My cousin was married in 1992 in September. I would not have missed her wedding for nothing. I mean, number one, I come from a big Italian family. You just don't miss cousins' weddings. You just don't. I mean, unless you're really sick, you're dying, or something really horrible is going on. Quite frankly, even if you have something really contagious, I mean, you just don't miss weddings, okay? For years, my cousin has said to me every now and again when we're at a family thing, and she's not doing it to make me upset or anything. She's like, hey, I missed my cousin's wedding. I didn't go. Now, every now and again, she will say, hey, Maria, what was the reason you weren't at my wedding again? What were you doing the night of my wedding? What? She's checking my memory. For years, all I could remember is, and so, hey there, Francine, Tom, I can remember now. Okay, now it took me, what is it, 26 years now? 26 years, because last year was your 25th wedding anniversary. 26 years to remember I was not at their wedding because a person in my life who I knew shouldn't be in my life. I had a feeling about him. I didn't trust my gut feeling. He had shown me his impulse control wasn't good. I knew that he had a lot of anger issues with his parents, his mother, his father, his sister, his brother-in-law, his boss. And he was always kind of like just unloading on me. And there were so many things that I blamed myself for in this. And then the fact that I was hit in the head and the face. I like, it went somewhere in my mind. Like, I knew, okay, this person assaulted me. I know this person assaulted me with a hammer. I know that I was hanging a picture of Jesus Christ, with the kind of picture that Latter-day Saints give you, that kind of Sacred Heart kind of picture. I was hanging that in my living room, and I had dinner on the stove, and my door was open in my apartment because I was listening for the laundry room, because I had laundry spinning right next door, and I was listening for the laundry machine to go off. And all that week I had been thinking, I need to keep my door just shut and locked, because I don't want him just being able to show up here and come in. And the apartment complex I lived in, they were always propping the security door, the common hallway door. For kids that lived there, parents that didn't want to, get up and answer the door, were propping the door. And I remember thinking, as I was doing the laundry that day when I came out and I left the door cracked so I could hear, because my stove was right there, my door was right there. So I was at the stove, and I thought, well, let me just hear for when it clicks off and I can grab my clothes out of the dryer, because my neighbor across the hall was waiting for the dryer. And I said, no problem. The minute and I'll go right over. And we were on the same floor, and she was home, and I thought, I'm safe, I'll leave it open. But something in me was like, I should shut the door. But I didn't. And I had pasta I was making, and I was making some broccoli, and I was cooking up some stuff, and I had a couple different burners going. And I was just waiting for the water to come to a boil. And I hopped up on a bench, and I have that bench right in the other room. I looked down because I use that bench too sometimes, but I have a bench in the other room. I hopped up on the bench, and I marked. I thought, let me hang that picture. I found the spot I'm going to hang that picture. And while I was waiting for the stove, I was waiting for the door, I hopped up, and I went up on the little bench, and I marked the wall where you're going to hang it, and I kept putting different areas, so I was kind of trying to measure and look, like, does it need to be higher up, does it need to be more centered, what, this way, that way, and I kept setting down the hammer on the table right beside me. Right beside me was my dining room table, and I kept going up, and eventually that picture got moved into my living room, but at first I wanted it to be in the dining room. So I had the hammer in my hand, and I had just set down the hammer, and all of a sudden he was just right there. And it was like everything just flashed right in front of me, like, oh man, I was stupid, well, it's okay, it's just him. I mean, he's been a little weird lately, but it's okay. He was like, hey, what are you doing? And I hanging a picture. And the way I said it, just like that, like, hanging a picture, like, what does it look like I'm doing? He was like, what's your problem? And he was doing that. And I said, nothing. I said, I'm just hanging a picture. No problem here. And I was like, oh, you got your car out there? You got your truck? And I was like, it was like, the door was open. I was like, yeah. And I was thinking to myself, dummy, idiot, why did you leave that door open? I had a bad feeling about him all that month. I just wasn't acting right. And I thought, I need to get this guy out of my life, or he needs to go talk to a doctor or something, get something. He needs to go take a vacation, something. I don't know. Go to a hospital, whatever. He needs something. And he had been living with his parents, and he had gotten into an argument with them, and he really had nowhere to go. And he was going between, like, his sister's house, but he wasn't getting along with his brother-in-law. And then he was going to a friend's house, and he would eventually show up at my house and just kind of unload on me all of his stuff. And I would, and at the time, he knew that at that very time I had been sick, and but he also knew that I had been a social worker, and he knew that I did listen to him, and I kind of tried to give him good ideas all the time. But I was weary of him. I was tired of listening to him, and he knew it. And I was getting more, like, sarcastic towards him, like, why don't you get a job over here? Or why don't you go here? Or why don't you get your own apartment? Or why don't you, how can you ask your mother and your father for money in the same breath and then bitch and yell about them? I think you're using them. I mean, I was starting to tell him what I thought of his life. And he didn't intend to do what he did, but he totally lost it. And I mean, basically, we were just going back and forth with, like, did you want to go get something to eat? I said, no, I'm already making dinner. What are you making dinner for? Me. If you want to join me, you can join me. No, I don't like those kind of things. Gotta go get a bite to eat. Now, this is something we'd always done, but I was getting tired of it. It's like, I didn't want to be eating fast food. I didn't want to go down to a diner one more time. He always wanted to go out to eat. And I was like, no, I have stuff to do. What you got to do? I mean, I have stuff to do. And I went to turn around to grab the hammer. I said, I'm hanging a picture. I'm looking around. I'm trying to rearranging things. And before I could get to the hammer, that hammer was hitting my head right here, and this part, and this. My entire face, I was getting one after another. He was just like, and I came down. I remember like stumbling down off the bench and kind of like, you know, like trying to like, I was like, are you serious? And I put my hands up and it got me in my hand. And it got me in my face again. And then I realized my neighbor is home. And I was like, I realized the door is still open. My neighbor's home. And I started screaming really loud. And the minute I started to scream, he dropped the hammer and took off. She called an ambulance, got me. I ended up at the hospital where doctors and policemen were coming in to try to figure out what happened to me. And all I could say was, a guy assaulted me with a hammer. Now, I was so fearful of that hammer because I couldn't remember. It was crazy, but I couldn't remember that he had done this. I kept thinking, well, a guy walked into my house and did this. I gave a perfect description of him. I couldn't remember his name. I couldn't remember what we were talking about. For years, I couldn't remember until a few days ago. And whenever my cousin would ask me, why didn't you come to the wedding, I would say, well, I was killing a spider. I was climbing up on the coffee table in between the couch, because this did happen within the same month, which was, I remember going to the emergency room and the doctor was like, you're back? What happened now? And I was like, no, I was killing a spider. I actually did sprain my ankle. In the middle of the night, I woke up at like 3 in the morning. I'd fallen asleep on the couch, woke up, and there was a spider going back and forth like this. And, you know, like hanging from the wall. And I grabbed a magazine and I stood up on my coffee table and I had 1 foot on my couch and 1 foot on my coffee table, and I took a swing at it and it fell on me, of course, so I did this and I ended up twisting my ankle. So I had to go to the emergency because it was really swollen. I had a sprained ankle. That happened in October. And how this all came together for me was I was looking through my paperwork, all my medical paperwork from years ago. I was like, oh my gosh, wait a minute, that happened in October. So, that would be a way of assisting memory, is to be able to show somebody, okay, there's a paper of you being in the hospital with all this going on in September. Years later, I had to go to a neurologist because I had no feeling on this side of my face. And my hand does, my hand cramps in, like these fingers cramp in like this. And this does this, and this eye goes out with sight all the time. Years later, in 2006, 7, 8, and again in 2013, 14, 15, at a neurologist, the neurologist could look at my medical records at the very same hospital and say, you had trauma to this side of your face. What did you do to get treatment for it? Now I remember after that, I actually went to a trauma brain center where I had to sit in a like car simulator thing and make sure I could drive okay. And I had had meningitis before that, so my left side was already messed up, but now it was messed up more. And I remember they wanted to make sure. 26 years. I have been replacing that memory with another memory that was so close to that. Like, yeah, I was up in the middle of the night before your wedding, and there was no way I could come to your wedding in the morning because I was at the emergency room all night. No, there was no way I could come to their wedding because I was in the emergency room till 2, 3 in the morning with my face completely swollen, both sides, but this side was the worst, and my hand all torn up, and my eyes were completely shut, and my head was completely cracked open here, and I was on like concussion watch for the next 24 hours. I couldn't. And no way was I going to go be around my family with all that. It was just understood from the family. What happened to Maria is not good. She's not coming. You don't want to see her, right? And they all just, I'm sure they all talked about it, but nobody ever talked about it to me. And later in years, I continued to be around this guy. And I'm looking at it now thinking, how did he stay in my life doing that? Because I totally forgot. And not only that, when my therapist said, this guy needs you, it's definitely him. You're describing him. You need to confront him. When I confronted him, I still wasn't sure about it. I was like, you know, I think you did this to me. He was like, no, I would never do that. I was like, what, some stranger just walked into my house and you came in? No, I wouldn't do that to you. It wasn't until years later that his mother said to me, I think Steve did that to you. And I still didn't even believe her. So, how is memory when there's a trauma? Murky. It's murky. I can only go by my personal experience, but I can tell you this. I've talked to enough people in my lifetime that I know that people that do really nasty, horrible things to people don't remember it. They're traumatized. They have shocked themselves. So, yes, everyone's innocent until proven otherwise, and we may never know with Judge Kavanaugh. I guess things I wonder about the whole Dr. Ford and Judge Kavanaugh and Senator Feinstein is, this man was a judge for many years. I don't think he should have had that seat if that was his behavior as a teenager. However, if he was a teenager that just totally was liquored up and lost it one night, inebriated, and did something really crazy and stupid, and really can't remember it because he blacked out, and he never did that again, and he was a fine, upstanding citizen, then I don't see how it should affect his seating. So, when people are talking about the trial, unless a whole lot of other people are going to come forward and say he continued to be that way, he did that all through college, all through high school, yeah, he's probably going to get confirmed. I think he's probably going to get confirmed. Unless they do a full investigation, he's going to get confirmed. And I don't think it helps him to not have a full investigation done. I would want that done. And I think that she never wanted to come forward, and all those years later. And this is the problem you have with young kids. Isn't this the same problem you have with priests all the time that we have with kids that say, oh, a priest 20 years ago, 30 years ago, or adult going to a therapist saying, well, my parents so many years ago, the babysitter, the teacher, the coach, the whatever. I think what really needs to be changed is the statute of limitation and reporting. Because it might take a long time till a person gets to a emotional place where they have enough resources to really look back at that, what happened to them, and say, I was wrong. And somebody should know. And that person shouldn't be working with children. I mean, it's the same problem with the producers in Hollywood. The whole year of Me Too allegations, that's the whole problem is, well, why is everybody waiting? Well, it's an open secret. Everybody knows that guy's weird. Everybody knows that's what he does. Okay, somebody's waiting for somebody else to say it. there's got to be a way for people to continue to report even when memory is murky, and I know it's nasty, but I don't know any other way to explain it. I'm just really tired of hearing people say, well, she can't remember how she got to the party, or how she got home, or what she did that day, or who invited her. She doesn't remember anything, and her parents didn't. Well, you know what? Her parents saved her a lot more re-traumatization by not calling the police that night, if she told her parents that night. Maybe she was still blaming herself because she wasn't supposed to be at a party where there was alcohol. That happens to date rape all the time. Oh, well, I wasn't supposed to be at that club. Oh, well, I knew better than to pick up that drink. I wasn't even supposed to be drinking. People that have been assaulted and raped are constantly blaming themselves. What did I do? Why did that person hurt me? What did I do? Well, it was my fault. They blame themselves a lot. And I think that if what Dr. Christine Ford said, if what she alleges actually happened, she has spent a lifetime of blaming herself for even being at that party. And then really going through the grief of wondering, why did they do that to me? Why did he do that to me? Why? What made what? Why did I walk up the stairs at that moment to decide to go to the bathroom? What was I thinking? I should have brought fun with me. What? But more than that, it's sad that anybody has to live in a world like that. That young boys, young girls, teenagers, or otherwise, have to live in a world where we have to wonder. The buddy system, take a friend, blah, blah, blah. And if she was at a party with these people and they were her friends, it's the betrayal. It's the betrayal of what made me be vulnerable? What made him think he could just do that to me? There's so much that goes into a trauma when someone is attacked. The whole betrayal of the person that did it, and then and I'm talking about all kinds of like physical abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, bullying. What am I wearing? A sign that says "bully me"? I mean, these are all the things people think. What's wrong with me? How did I was talking to a gal the other day, and she said, I don't like the law of attraction. And she said, I don't like hanging around those people that are like, oh, you get what you attract to you. And I said, why? And she said, well, I didn't ask for cancer. And she said, I lived a really healthy lifestyle. And so I don't believe I wrote my script in heaven and said, I want cancer. Yeah, I get it. And she said, and I didn't want to be raped when I was younger either. I didn't say, I think I want to be raped. She said, so I just don't believe all that junk. And I had to just honor where she was right then. I'm like, okay, I get it. Because she saw that I was following a lot of the secret, the law of the universe, and the way I believe it is that the way I believe when bad things happen to anyone, good people or bad people, is that bad things just happen. I've always believed that, but for a long time, I entertained the thought of, what's wrong with me? Why did that happen? What was wrong? Am I stupid? I knew. I didn't trust my own self. I knew this guy was going to blow up. He was going to take his anger out on someone. I could see it in his face. His face would get really red, and he would look like a person like that was in a fighter ring, and he would just like shut down. He would get this stone look, and kind of stone look before you attack somebody. And I had seen that look on enough men in my life to know that look, that fierce, I'm about to attack you. look, I'm about to do something really nasty. I'm about to get in your face. I have resolved it in my brain. I'm going to get in your face and be nasty. I knew that with the guy that beat me with a hammer. But for years, I did not know. And I remember just coming home and seeing that hammer and hiding it. I remember feeling like I needed to put the hammer under my mattress. Like I didn't want the hammer in sight where anybody could grab it. I really didn't know who did this. Although I kept describing him over and over again to a T. It wasn't until his mother heard me describing him that she began to wonder, because there was nobody else coming to my house. There was nobody else that would have walked in that and just had a whole conversation with me. And I remember the doctors were trying so hard that night in the emergency room, and they said, okay, so you were talking to some guy about dinner, because how much of it was the concussion, I don't know. But, you get hit a few times in the head, in the face, and the eye with I think it was like 5 or 6 times that hammer came down on my face and my head. So I remember the doctor saying, you're just really, really lucky that you're not dead. And that whole year's been blurry for me, for years. That whole year. Now, yes, there was a physical something, but that happened that could have affected my memory, but it didn't. We checked my memory over and over again. There was nothing physically. We did CAT scans, we did MRIs, we did all those things, and I went to an actual memory trauma and memory baseline and all that. My memory was good, but for that event, and it was just a while ago that I started to remember that I was in the hospital with a big, old, ugly, bruised up face, swollen, bruised up face, bloody lip, bloody eyes. I remember I had to shave a patch there of my hair because they had a stitch. So how do people forget? Not be able to remember all the details. They just do. In traumas, they do. Okay, so you can remember an event. The whole time I knew, okay, I was attacked by some guy with a hammer. And even later in years, when people would tell me it was him, I couldn't remember the date. Like, yeah, that happened, but I don't know when that happened. Even when I finally knew it was him, like I knew it was him. Once I knew it was him, I still couldn't remember the date. So when my cousin would ask me, and I mean, she always asks me whenever we get together, just about every other 3 times we get together at a family dinner or holiday, she'll say, why weren't you at my wedding again? And I always say, oh yeah, I was killing a spider and I sprained my ankle. And she's like, yeah, you killed a spider, sprained your ankle. She'll walk away from me, not say anything. The whole family knows. That's what happened to me. That's why I was not at the wedding. Nobody said anything, because if I didn't remember it on my own, and this is what's so important about therapy, this is why your therapist could know a whole lot of what really happened, but they can't tell you, and they don't. And this is why I get really pissed off when people are like, oh, well, your therapist made you remember that. No, they didn't make you remember. They assisted you. They helped work. And they could be taking some wild guesses in there too. And this is why people that actually abuse people are like, are you kidding me? I never did that. They're traumatized. So I just, on both ends, Judge Kavanaugh could be like, I don't remember that. I didn't do that. Because he shocked the bejiggers out of himself. He scared his own self so bad. he lost complete control of himself, and he wasn't himself at that moment. Or the alcohol just wiped it out of his brain. But now Christine Ford's going to have to bring in the kids that were at the party, who are adults now, who were inebriated, who might not remember. But they know enough. They know that she will not be in a room. She told her therapist she won't be in a room with the door closed. She makes sure the door is open or she can't sleep. She won't go into any room with the door closed. She worked with a therapist for 6 years. Did she say it was Judge Kavanaugh? Probably not. Probably not. She probably said, I was at a party and a kid. She probably never mentioned his name. But now they're going to have to bring the therapist in. And is he going to get confirmed? Probably. I think so. So what's really going on? Okay, so I just wanted to share that about memory. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. Bye-bye.